I can feel it. So thank you for being here today. Today we've had the first two part of this series were really just informational and really kind of threw a lot at you. Anytime I feel like we talk about legislation and bills and law, it gets kind of heavy. So the goal today is really just to let loose a little bit more, kind of get some more resources about, how to interact and take a little stress off. So it's pretty full schedule, so I'm going to just turn the time over to Tally. I'm sure most of you know Tally Vateri. She's Assistant Director and Grant Administrator at UOVC. She is my supervisor, and she's going to just kind of give us a little update about what's been going on so far.
All right. Hi, everybody, and happy holidays. For those of you who've been around a little while, remember how our SWAVOs for December used to be all pretty with the gifts and holidays. So just imagine that, put a pretty background on, put some Christmas music on or whatever you want to do, because we are trying to make the most of this situation. And that's all we got left right now, right? So some of you might remember a few months ago, I sent out a survey to the SWAVO list and a lot of other people too about what was the word exactly? Trauma-informed care and vicarious trauma and burnout and kind of level of what you're feeling right now. And so we got really fantastic results from that. And so I just want to take a minute to share what that was and then kind of talked about our next steps. So I'm going to share the screen here. Just a second. Okay, here we go. So the first thing that we're going to do, for those of you that are here, and Rochelle, if you want to put this in the chat box now, if you want to go to menti.com, it's MENTI.com. Use the code 2664681. We'll keep that up there so you have that. And then it's going to ask you to put 3 words in. Use 3 words to describe how you're feeling right now. Okay. And then we're going to watch them come up here. I'm going to do it too. Tired, sleepy, and happy. It's kind of all of those things, right? All right. See, these are
these words. Somebody's giggly. That's good.
I love these things because it's just so fun to give a quick check-in.
Eager and excited. That's always good for training.
Especially when we see those as being a little lacrimose. I have a feeling that was Dallas, actually. Dallas with his big words. It wasn't me. All right, Dallas.
What? Then that means you have competition, Dallas.
Sad, heavy, blah. I know, right? Someone's has more words than Dallas. So I love these. So we're just going to leave this up. If some people are joining us and want to put that on there, you can kind of see it going. But, this is such a great way to get a quick pulse of the room and see where we are. So, the biggest ones are what's been entered the most on the word bubble. So I'm seeing here tired, anxious, overwhelmed, and stressed. that's an interesting theme, and that's kind of what I thought we would see. I think that a lot of people are feeling these just in generally this time of year with work, but the biggest reason why I wanted to do 3 words though, was because obviously there's more than one emotion going on. I was one of the overwhelmed as well, but I also was excited. I'm excited to see all of you guys and talk today, but overwhelm is probably a feeling I just have 24/7. Just too much to do, too many things going on, and not enough time to do it. And it's kind of something we live with. So, and we live with various emotions at once. So I hope that today we can get a little bit of stress relief from this training, and that you take some self-care, like Rochelle had pointed out in the email, that you're able to, turn off the cameras if it's actually stressful to have your cameras on. So I will purposefully turn off my camera in some meetings, like I need to take a second from being on the stage. And so that's okay. Sometimes you gotta have them on, but if not, trust me, I know that you guys are all smiling and happy and laughing at my jokes behind your cameras, and that's okay. I don't usually get insecure about that as I did when this pandemic first hit. Okay, so let's hop out of here. Hang on a second. Get me out of here. There we go. Okay, and let's go back to my presentation. Thank you guys for humoring me with that. Okay, so, right, we're talking about self-care, but I think it's important. And by the way, Rochelle or Maddie, the way I'm presenting made it so I can't see all of you now. So if someone says something or something goes on the chat, will you guys just speak and give me a heads up because I can't see anything, okay? I feel like I'm kind of going blind.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Okay, so self-care, right? We hear this a lot. And the way we're going to talk about this a little bit today is probably going to be different than the way you're used to, because sometimes things don't work. So for those of you who might have seen this before, this is my little Russian tortoise. His name is Chiquito, because if you speak Spanish, Chiquito means like little one. And he is Chiquito. He's about the size of my hand. I don't know how old he is, but tortoises can live to be about 50 or 60. And I got him from someone else who didn't know how old he was. So he could be 5, he could be 50. I don't know. But he's a sweet little guy. He is actually very cute. I had to bring him into the office when the windstorm, my power was out for 3 days. That was not very much fun. And so I brought him with me to work so that I could plug in his lamp and keep him warm. And Gary, my boss, some of you know him, came in the office. I was like, I might have brought a friend to work today. He was okay with that. So here he is, munching on his little strawberry. He loves his strawberries. And I wanted to just highlight him really quickly because my tortoise, I have to say, is a master of self-care. Because they kind of have a built-in self-care system. I mean, scientists probably call it like survival, but that is basically self-care, right? It's survival. And if he's stressed or, sometimes he'll go outside or the kids will be handling him, he has this great way where he will obviously go in his shell as tortoises and turtles do. But first he'll burrow himself. He can bury himself pretty much all in his little mossy, structure there. And sometimes I can't even see him. I actually got worried, but then Google told me that that's okay. That's what they do. Or he has a little log that he can go under. So I've just always loved that because I just think I would like that. When my life is difficult, I'm going to bury myself somewhere, hide in my shell until I'm feeling okay, and then come right out, right? And that's what we learn about a lot with self-care is, do your bubble baths, do some exercise, get enough sleep, right? Yes, we all get that. We all know it's great. But at the same time, we sometimes are not living in lives that make that available. He has a very climate controlled tank that keeps him warm, or he can go in the shade, and he has food that arrives daily for him. And so things are just set there for him. Whereas if he was just, out in our house wandering around and worrying about getting stepped on all the time or handled by children, he probably wouldn't be able to self-care so much. So it's important to realize that the self-care isn't just about our abilities and what we do, as it is the environment that we're able to do that in. So moving on to the results of the survey. And if you have any questions, feel free just to put them in the chat and one of my peoples will tell me so I can answer those. So we had 296 people respond to these. Great job. I'm sure many of you are here today. So thank you so much for responding to this. It was given out statewide to victim services professionals, so people who work with crime victims. On the left here, we have the years of that they were in the victim services field in general. Quite an even spread here. The largest has been here for more than 6 years. So I know that we've had some people in this field for 20 years or more. So it's definitely an even spread for new as well as seasoned advocates. And then on the right is the type of victim aid advocacy services. This is by the agency they're currently working at. We know a lot of advocates move around, but just the people currently working at 54% community-based services, usually nonprofit, 41% system-based, and then just a small percent of university and some other. So pretty good spread with those two. Okay, so here we have their level of burnout vicarious trauma. So a 1 is you're good, you have either nothing or very little burnout vicarious trauma, life is just going great for you. And 5 is the other end of having a difficult time coping with life due to burnout vicarious trauma. And so we got a really even spread here, actually. I mean, it's a nice looking bell curve, but, you know, obviously it is worrisome. You know, this 6% right here concerns me. You know, 6% of 300 people is probably about 18 or so people out there that are not able to cope with life due to that. We have another 23% that, you know, they're not quite that stressed, but I'm thinking just a couple more events will get them there. And then 39% of people that are definitely feeling the burn. So over half of our respondents by far are definitely feeling quite a bit of burnout and vicarious trauma. So, you know, and before I say anything else, we know this goes with the field, right? We all, oh, well, that's the job. That's the job. It is. You know, we all knew this job going in, it'd be rough. But I say that with a big grain of salt, because I think we overuse that phrase quite a bit to say, well, this is the job, as a way of just shoving off any kind of care someone could be able to take for themselves. So I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. I also wanted to kind of put, we have a major extraneous variable in here of 2020, right? So I wanted to make sure that was addressed, because people are probably just feeling extra stress in general due to everything that is going on this year. This was actually, I think, given in, maybe Rochelle help me out, August, September. So, you know, as we know, more things have gone on in the world, as we can probably already imagine. And so the question was, are you feeling more stressed out just because of everything that's going on in your job? Because that's obviously going to affect their overall level. And nearly 70% said that they were more burned out at their jobs because of 2020. 8 actually said they were less, and 23% said they did not feel like it had any effect. So, but a good portion of it definitely are feeling it at their jobs and just in general too. Okay, so this is kind of where I want to focus on this, you know, because none of this is anything new, right? We all hear about self-care. We all hear about burnout, vicarious trauma. We've been talking about this for years, but we don't talk about as much. And first of all, know that this isn't a pointing the finger as it is like we're all learning here. And I'm so glad that we have Sarah Mary Beth to talk more about this today too, is that what is the role of our agencies around our burnout? So this is kind of what I was talking about before, is the environment that we are in and how do they help or hinder us. And so on the left chart here, you'll see on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being that the agency actually contributes to your burnout, vicarious trauma, and a 5 being the agency gives support and resources that deal with vicarious trauma and burnout. So about 10% of respondents said that their agency actually contributes to the burnout, vicarious trauma, and 25% have said that they actually give them support and resources. So, you know, we're definitely doing okay on the positive side when you have half giving it a 4 or a 5, saying, yep, my agency is positive and supportive. But we also have another 25% that's telling us that my agency is actually worsening my burnout and vicarious trauma. We have about 22% in the middle that's not really doing one or the other. But, 23% is definitely significant in that there's victim advocate professionals out there feeling like they're working for a program that's making their life more difficult on top of the work we're already doing. And so this is why I like to stress that we talk a lot about it's part of the job. It's part of the job. It is and it isn't. Working with victims in crisis and dealing with that is probably going to be part of the job. But having to work in an environment where you're always feeling nervous and stressed out and you can never get a break and that you feel like your boss is going to fire you in a minute, all of that kind of stuff, that's not part of the job. And it's really easy for organizations just to push that off, to push that culture off and saying, well, you know what you signed up for, this is part of the job. And that's not. We signed up to help people. We signed up to help crime victims, but we didn't sign up to work for toxic organizations. And I think that's really important to note here. So the next slide is just talking about additional resources and support outside of work. So a 1 is I have little or no resources, support, tools, whatever that might be, to deal with vicarious trauma outside of work. So, these could be like family, neighbors, friends, support groups, hobbies, whatever that might be. And then a 5 is I have ample resources, support, tools to deal with burnout, and I practice them regularly. So as you see, a lot of people look like they have the resources and tools to do that. There's just a small percentage of a 1 or a 2, about 13, 14% that don't really have much. But it looks like for the most part, people have connections with support and resources outside. But it's interesting, if you see the 3s and the 4s are the highest, and my theory for that is because a 5 isn't just that you have them, but that you practice them regularly. And I think that's the difference, and that we're all a little bit guilty of. It's like, yeah, I have an elliptical at my house. It gets some dust, so I definitely have some support. I have access to call up my therapist and I have a lot of things like that, but practice them regularly is a whole different situation. And so once again, kind of getting back to my little tortoise here is like, you might have that, but if you're not doing that, then what's happening here that's preventing you from doing that? Just a couple more things here. And then just asking if respondents would be interested. We did get a lot who said they would be interested in resources, as well as training and some mentoring as well. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay. And then the last one, we received a lot of fantastic, just additional comments. Really that a lot of it changed our mindset. Some of them we weren't anticipating for this type of survey, but we're like, wow, that was really insightful. So thank you for everybody who put some more comments on there. I couldn't really include them all. I didn't want to take the time because obviously it takes time, but I really liked this one because I really felt like it summed it up. So if you've made this comment and you're out here, thank you, but I'm just going to read this. It says, in this field, we all know how important self-care is. However, we are pressured to do more work than we have time and resources for, and we are so invested in helping our clients who we see as being in so much more need than us. We end up being too exhausted and burnt out to engage in self-care activities and resources. I often feel even more stressed out when I think about how I'm not doing the self-care that I'm supposed to be doing to help myself not be so stressed out. It's crazy making. And whoever wrote this, I mean, you hit it right on the head there, that it's like, oh my gosh, now I have to add self-care to my long list of things to do. And it doesn't always happen because we're not necessarily in environments or one thing or another to really facilitate that. Another example I used quite a bit was when I was in direct services, I needed to be on call 24/7, 365. I didn't get a break, which I didn't always get calls every day, for sure, but it's the fact of feeling that you could is actually quite draining. And I know a lot of you feel that. And I remember, you know, I would take my self-care, I'd go out for runs. Obviously, it's very healthy to get some exercise, doing my job, doing some self-care, but I'd have to take my phone with me out on my run. And sometimes I would get calls out on my run. So here I am running down the street with my phone in my hand, you know, it's crazy making, right? Because that's not the point. So while we talk about self-care, you know, like my cute tortoise, like go in your shell and take a bubble bath and do all of this, that's fine. But, you know, if you're not in an environment that allows you to do that, like if I just left my tortoise willy-nilly around the house with kids that could step on him anytime, he's not going to be able to do that self-care. And that's not trauma-informed in an organization to ask people to do self-care, like getting enough sleep, but then requiring them to be on call all night long. So we really have to rethink these types of activities of being trauma-informed and practicing our self-care, not just as an event, but as a pattern of life and a pattern of our organization. Okay, just a couple more slides. So I love this because I kind of feel like now we're all woke, as the youngins like to say. We're like, okay, so we know what we need to do. We know what needs to happen, but we're kind of stuck in our little bubbles right now, and we can see that out there. But how do we get out of our bags, right? I love Finding Nemo, by the way, too. It's just so fun. So now what? We're kind of on the brink of this. You know, it's like I said, we kind of got out of our tank. We're kind of out in the ocean, but we're really not there. So it's sometimes even worse to be more aware of it. But we are going to be talking about this more in this light. I've been looking through immense of research. I'd be happy to pass them on to you all about what trauma-informed organizations look like, and not just a trauma-informed individual, right? Trauma-informed is a major buzzword right now. We say it a lot, but it's great. You know, but what does a trauma-informed organization look like? And how do you practice, how is the culture of your organization enabling not just the people you serve, but the people who serve them and their ability to serve and to heal? Because we know it's not one or the other, but usually the people that are working in there, if they're feeling safe and cared for, the people you serve are going to feel safe and cared for. So we've been working a lot with Trauma-Informed Utah and their steering committee with Mary Beth and Sarah and Kara and all these wonderful people. We're also looking to hosting a series of trainings and workshops for organization directors on trauma-informed organizations next year. And the idea of, we're still exploring this ourselves, you know, so we're definitely no pros either. And we're looking at it in our own organization at UOVC, mind you, too, of like, okay, we've got some work to do ourselves too. We're no means the pro, but what has been done? What does a trauma-informed organization look like? And getting the leadership buy-in to make those agency-wide changes to make this available for others. And then last but definitely not least, we are so excited to talk about a new program today that we have at UOVC, which is our Victim Advocate Liaison Program. Some of you might already know, but we applied for a grant through the Department of Justice. They had a new discretionary grant program called State Victim Liaisons. We applied for it. We got it. We are thrilled. And we have a victim advocate liaison who'll be starting in a couple weeks. And their job will be specifically to go out. And right now, obviously, things are a little bit more virtual. So maybe go out means on scene or maybe on the phone, but work directly with organizations and some of the difficulties they're working with. And so that might be implementing best practices in victim services, especially like maybe you're an advocate in rural Utah and you're the only one around and you're like, how do I even do my job? There's no one else here like me. So getting some of that training and some model victim standards set up. Assisting programs to really connect and to collaborate with other service providers. Some of this stuff you guys might be doing already, and actually you probably are, and that's great. This person is by no means going to be a forced upon you kind of thing. You know, it's not going to be like, well, you know, we're going to come in and fix your place. You know, if you're thinking, hey, you know what, we're good, we got this. We're not coming in to do that. This is going to be more for people who are like, hey, could we get an extra pair of eyes, or could we get someone to come in and help us on some specific issues that's happening in our agency, in our county, and help us work through that. That's kind of more of the area of this, and you'll see more as it rolls out. And then also providing trainings and technical assistance to local as well as statewide organizations. Some people just don't understand what victim advocates are, and you're definitely in the field, but how nice is it to have somebody from the Utah Office of Victims of Crime say, hey, let me talk to you about what victim services really look like and what they are. And then they'll also be in their first year completing a needs assessment and strategic planning for victim advocacy programs throughout the state. And what are your needs? What are we seeing across the state about how we can help you hand in hand? So it's a really exciting program. It's not just about, we're not just here to monitor your grants and to audit that, which is part of our role, obviously, here. But we want to provide that support and training and technical assistance. So for issues like this, and to provide some more support, because you guys are doing some tough work out there, and we would like to help you as much as we can. So with that being said, I would like to introduce our new victim advocate liaison, who is Vicki Bushman. And she's going to say hello. If I can ever get out of here. Okay, I stopped sharing. So that's all I have to say for now. Let's turn over to Vicki so she can introduce herself. And then if there's any questions on any of what I just said, we'll do that next.
Thank you, Tally, for the introduction. And yeah, I'm really excited to be able to work with you all. Some of my background just that I've worked in is I worked for CAPSA in different roles there. I worked there for about 3 years, and then I worked for Sandy City Police Department as a victim advocate just shy of 10 years. And then I've been at UOVC as a grant analyst for a little over 2 years. So I've been in the field, I guess, in one way or another in about 14 years. If the running joke in our office is that Gary, when he introduced me to our board, when I first started, said I'd been in the field dozens and dozens of years. So that's usually the joke that everyone says, that I've been in that long. Definitely not quite that long, but so I do have some background doing community-based and system-based, and really excited to work with all the different advocates across the state. I've enjoyed working with everyone that I have as a grant analyst, getting to know different programs. And so I really, if you have something working really well for your program, I would love to hear about it, so that we can share that with other programs and be able to help them see some other avenues or good ways to run their program. Luckily, with the background that I do have from Sandy had kind of a unique program that not any other state or any other agency in the state has. So you may be utilizing some of those things that we did have in that program to share with everyone else. But I'm very excited to work with you all, and I definitely agree that the vicarious trauma is a real thing. And so hopefully I can be that person you can go to too if you can't go to your supervisor about maybe something that you just need a debrief about. Big fan of debriefing. It definitely helps. So, and I think Rochelle had a question.
No, I accidentally raised my hand, but welcome, Vicki.
Okay. I was like, I don't know. So, but yes, I'm excited to work with you all, and I've already worked with a lot of you guys, but I'm excited to be across the state. So that's
good. Thank you, Vicki. We really, I think, as SWAVO, I think it's really going to be a great addition to the victim advocate team. I think it will help coordinate us. And so I'm excited. I'm really excited for this new position. That was such a unique funding opportunity that I was glad that it was written and awarded. So welcome. Thank you for your presentation, Tally. We're going to move along, and Tally already kind of made mention of Trauma-Informed Utah. Definitely, SWAVO, you're going to hear much more about that. So we've invited Sarah Shea to talk to us a little bit about the initiative.
Awesome. Thanks, Rochelle and Tally. I don't think that we could have asked for a better tee up to our presentation that we have for you guys today. So I'm here with my colleague and mentor, Mary Beth Vogel-Ferguson. We are out of the Social Research Institute at the College of Social Work at the U, and she's going to do our formal introduction, but I just wanted to say hello, everyone, and I'm going to present my screen now. We're excited to be with you. Okay, did that go through?
Not yet.
Okay. You know, oh, there we go, because I didn't say what I wanted to present, which is a tab. Okay. There we go. Okay.
There you go.
Here we are. So Mary Beth.
Well, I'll just say I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you for the opportunity for having the both of us come and speak to your quarterly SWAVO meeting. We're going to be talking a little bit, picking up on what Tally was talking about earlier, but Sarah is going to start by giving you some information about a project we've been working on for several years. In the past year or so, we've been thrilled to add leadership from your organization to our team, moving this effort forward. So Sarah, why don't you tell them what we've been doing?
Amazing. Thanks, Mary Beth. So I am here to talk to you about Trauma-Informed Utah, but first, I want to invite you guys to take a second or a few seconds and just center yourself into this presentation that we have for you. We know the world kind of swirls around us like a vortex. We have texts and emails that come through, and it can even be hard just to stay focused during this period of virtual land that we are living in. So I just want to invite you to send that last text, take care of something that you need to take care of, and just take a moment for yourself before we move forward. Okay. I know taking a breath just to be present always helps me remember where I am in my day. So as Mary Beth and Tally mentioned, I am here to share a little more about Trauma-Informed Utah. And I actually was taking some notes while Tally was speaking. And Tally, I loved how you mentioned this idea of self-care not just being like a thing that we do, but it's this pattern of behavior, and almost it becomes, it's integrated into our routine. And I love that you said that it's a pattern within our organizations as well. And really, when we think about the work of Trauma-Informed Utah that I'll share with you in the next couple slides, that's really what this is about. We are working towards helping foster that pattern of organizational culture that is working to support the work that so many of us do across the state, working with individuals who are impacted by trauma and the effects of trauma, and then also helping to support those who are working within those systems, such as all of you guys here on this call. And so I just, as I said, Tally, you teed us up perfectly, and you talked about that leadership buy-in piece. And so I love our partnership, and I'm excited to have you guys involved. And I'm really excited to share a little more about this initiative with all of you guys. So the mission of Trauma-Informed Utah is to make Utah a trauma-informed state. And we were actually given this mission by the Intergenerational Poverty Welfare Reform Commission, when this initiative was actually a subcommittee of that IGP group. And that actually designation was made back in 2014. And so for the past 6 years, Mary Beth and our colleague Kara Patton have been working to promote this idea of a trauma-informed center or something in our community that can help promote and address trauma that impacts our community and our individuals and organizations really at that organizational level. So we carry forward this mission into the work that we are doing as an initiative today, which is actually now out from underneath the IGP umbrella and is a standalone grant program that is sponsored by the Department of Health. And I will actually talk more about how we are kind of moving forward with that formalization of our initiative into something kind of a center itself. So the initial vision of this initiative is stated here on this slide. And so as you can see, we are really trying to embody kind of that idea of making Utah a trauma-informed state by really trying to have this statewide reach and presence and be responsive to the needs of our community. We also think it's really important that if we are going to be promoting trauma-informed work across our community, we need to be trauma-informed ourselves. And so part of the reason why Tally and Rochelle are involved with our initiative is because they can help bring the voice of their work and your work into the center development process, which is trying to, again, evolve to meet the needs of our community. And you guys are part of our community. And so our hope is that we can help meet your needs too. So a little bit about the Trauma-Informed Utah Initiative process. So we currently have 3 committees who are helping drive forward this initiative and really bring a center into existence in our community. So we have a group of community members who are part of our center development committee, which is really what we call, their task is to identify the nuts and bolts of the center. So agency type, helping with budget, staffing, identify partnerships in the community. We also have a center scope committee, and those individuals are helping us kind of flesh out what the center will really provide to our community. And so they are helping us identify different ways that we will present ourselves and engage with people and organizations across the state. We also have a research committee, and this is a multi-institution research committee. We're really excited to be able to say that we have researchers from institutions across the state, as well as state agencies and other partners who are helping us try and stay accountable to the research, the current body of knowledge around the trauma-informed approach, and make sure that we continue to be responsive to kind of where this field is going. And so what I love about our committees is that this picture just cracks me up because, it really represents how we are trying to bring this initiative to our community by our community. And so we're really excited to say that I want to say right now we have at least 60 participants across all of our committees, which, from a organizational management standpoint it's a lot, but honestly, we know that there are still voices who are not at the table and ideas that are not being presented because we haven't engaged with those entities or communities or organizations. And so this slide is really important for me to come back to because I always remember that the center is truly community-based, and we want it to be accessible to everyone, and we want as many people to get involved as possible. So next, a little more about the scope. So kind of giving people an idea of what the heck is this center actually going to offer? And I've put together kind of some ideas based on the other initiatives that are happening across the country. We are not the only state that is trying to become trauma informed and trying to tackle this kind of big mission. We have a counterpart over in Oregon, Trauma Informed Oregon, and they are a little farther down the road. And so at the bottom of the screen, they've done a really, that's kind of a screenshot from their website, and you can see all of the different types of resources that they offer their community. And we're hoping to also be able to offer our community as well, as long as kind of we're meeting the community needs. Of course, we're not going out to say, oh, well, they're offering this, so we should offer it. But we are definitely getting ideas from other organizations so that we can kind of hit the ground running. Some other options for scope, this idea of technical assistance around kind of trainings and maybe some consulting. And, you know, Tally mentioned that she is working on doing agency training in the next year. And Tally, I hope that we can talk about that. I'd love to learn what you're thinking and what you're planning on doing. Because if anything, we want people to use the center as a place to learn more about training opportunities, et cetera. We know that one big thing from the community needs assessment that we did a couple years ago was just this idea of having a community networking platform. We want a place where organizations and individuals can come together and kind of put their heads together and say, we're trying to wrap our minds around becoming trauma informed. How do we do this? Because the center's not going to have all the answers. In fact, there are many organizations who are already doing incredible work, and we don't want to recreate the wheel. We just want to elevate the work of others. So this is a little bit about our timeline. So you can see across the screen, October's in the past, November's in the past. So we've launched, we've kind of set the vision, which I shared with you. We just wrapped up all of our 3 committee meetings in December. And we spent some time really hashing out, like, what's happening across other states? What ideas can we learn from? And really starting to envision what our own model is going to look like. So we hope to have kind of a center proposal put together by early spring of next year. So, of course, our center development and our work was also interrupted by COVID. So on the right of the screen, you can see, you know, kind of down the center development path. This is an outline of kind of where we are in our process, or kind of walking out how we're going to create our center. And then on the left, we also had to develop a process to be able to respond to the crisis at hand, the trauma that is being experienced in our community in response to COVID-19, or trauma that's being exacerbated because of COVID-19. And so we established a resource that I'm going to share with you, that I actually shared with Rochelle early on, as a way to kind of, you know, fill in the gap of kind of our community needs while we're over here developing the center. And so this resource is a Trauma Informed Utah page through ACEs Connection. And ACEs Connection has been around since 2012, and it is a national kind of networking platform for organizations who are trying to address ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences, and also deal with trauma. So kind of similar to what we're hoping to do as well. So we established this Trauma-Informed Utah page, and I will send out resources. I know Rochelle has them. I don't know if they've been sent out already. The resources will be how you can access this page. So for Trauma-Informed Utah page on ACEs Connection, this is kind of what the home page looks like. And this is a place where we can post, you know, resources or articles about things that are happening in our community, and hopefully kind of prime that networking pump that we would like to see happen with the center itself. So in order to access the resources that we have put on ACEs Connection, this is kind of a little step through. So when you're on that home page, you can scroll down and you'll find this little widget for resources for downloading. And so we've kind of built out a variety of different categories that may be of interest to you. Secondary traumatic stress is on there. And we do have some good resources that talk about just kind of how you can gauge where you're at and other ideas to address the secondary traumatic stress. So this is just diving into that resources page a little deeper. So you can see all the categories here, and they have this nice little kind of tile way of putting out all the categories. It's pretty user friendly. And then they also have a calendar. So you can see this slide's actually from July. So you can find here, you can find, you know, trainings or webinars. I know Laura Flanagan is on this call, and she has done an amazing job updating the calendar with events that are happening in our community. So really, you know, we're just trying to kind of share what other organizations are doing and just provide as much awareness as possible around some of the cool stuff that's already happening in our state. So with that, that's a little bit about our initiative and our effort and kind of what we're doing with Trauma-Informed or ACEs Connection in the meantime. So I'd love to open it up for questions if anyone has anything. And if anything, if you have something come to your mind later on in the day, or you have a question that you'd prefer to email, I can throw my email in the chat so everyone has that. And I'm going to turn it over to Mary Beth. And I'm going to sign off, but it was really wonderful meeting you guys. I have a session at 2, and so I'm going to run, and Mary Beth has a really cool presentation for the rest of our time with you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Rochelle. Happy holidays, everyone.
You too.
2021 is coming.
It's going to be good.
Take care.
Thanks, Sarah. Oh, we just appreciate hearing everything that's been happening. We're really excited about the project and the development of the center. But I guess I want to make a shift now, because any effort like this is only as strong as the people in the community that do the work. We can design whatever we want, but you are some of the people that are doing the work on the ground. You work with people every day who have experienced events that could very well lead to trauma responses. It's the nature of your work, and even in the best times, it takes its toll. So I'm going to share my screen now, see if I can be as good at it as Sarah. And take us forward from here. All right, it looks like it's actually working. So for the rest of our time, I'm going to share some thoughts on surviving and thriving beyond 2020. And I think a lot of work that you've done has been about caring for your clients and a little bit on self-care, but so much of it gets directed outward. And I'd like us to be able to take some time just to think about how this time has been for us. It's been a challenging time. I think striving to carry out your mission, serving victims of crime throughout the state of Utah in the midst of all that's happened over the past 10 months. Is anyone else really just kind of tired of 2020? Ready to see it go? Well, if there was ever a need for a time machine to travel forward, right, it's now. So did anything in 2020 turn out the way that you hoped it would? Or if 2020 was a drink, what would it be? Oh, right. And I think it seems like the unprecedented events have just kept lining up one after another. And really, just ask the kids, school is never going to be the same. And for those of us working from afar, the workday has certainly changed. Like waking up to a Zoom alert, trying to grab a bite of lunch. And I don't know about you, but I am getting really tired at looking at my face every day. And worse, forgetting to put on mute before you spout off about everything. So for me, humor is one of my kind of go-to coping strategies. And it's valuable for us to realize that when we're using these kinds of coping strategies to stay sane, it's probably because there's something challenging there that's happening for all of us to cope with. And 2020 has certainly brought that. As you think about the year of 2020 and the impact that it has had, I think it's helpful to start with reflecting on how it has impacted us personally. It gives us a perspective, maybe another lens. So if you're doing your email or texting a friend, I'm just going to ask you to stop for a minute. Just stop. Pull out a scrap of paper, something to write with, and for just 30 seconds, I'd like you to take a moment just to think about what has this year been like. Write down 3 things or more that have been stressful for you this year. I'm going to time us 30 seconds. Just think and write. Ready, set, go. It probably didn't even take you 30 seconds to come up with 3 things that have happened in this past year. When you see those things, notice what comes up for you when you think about these events. What emotions are there? What do you feel in your body? Does your breathing change? For me, my stomach kind of locks up, or I have a hard time taking a deep breath. Or sometimes it's hard to actually identify how it feels in our body. All these responses you might be experiencing really can be referred to as a stress response. And in light of these challenges, sometimes we begin to wonder, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get it together? Why can't I deal with everything? And much of it has to do with that stress response. It's important to remember that that stress response is a normal response to abnormal events. It's to be expected when we're experiencing things that feel so big, perhaps overwhelming. That overwhelming word came up as, I think, the biggest word in our word cloud, or when we feel out of control. And it can be what we feel if, for example, we run into this guy. What we are experiencing is the response which is key to our continued existence as a human race, right? It's our survival instinct. And this response is something that we all have, no matter who we are, no matter our family background, our intelligence, our education. It is simply part of being a human being. And we are human beings serving other human beings. It's part of being a human in our universe. And this response is rooted in the human brain, complex and amazing. We're literally hardwired for survival. So let's do a really quick review of Brain Stuff 101, the 3 parts of the brain, that reptilian complex that regulates our heartbeat, breathing, body temperature, the limbic system, the center of emotion, memory, and learning, and our neocortex that fuels our thinking, problem solving, and planning. You know, stressful situations like a health scare or fear of losing a job are experienced in that limbic system and can trigger a flood of stress hormones that produce predictable changes in our brain. This is our survival instinct, often referred to as the fight, flight, or freeze response. The fight, flight, or freeze response occurs when we have an experience in which we feel threatened. When that happens, those alarm bells go off in the brain, setting off the fight, flight, or freeze response. When that happens, access to that neocortex, that thinking part of our brain, is literally cut off, and the reptilian or survival part takes over. Adrenaline and cortisol flood the body to fuel the muscles so we can react with strength and energy. We've all heard those stories about people like displaying super strength to save a loved one. And it works pretty well if you're running away from danger or chasing a child into the street, but it doesn't work so well if you're trying to navigate a pandemic. So along came 2020. And I don't know about you, but I was having a pretty good year at the beginning. And then the virus hit. It was a rough first few weeks. Thinking back, kids at home, businesses forced to close, figuring out how to balance work and family in the same space, maybe even wondering if you'd still have a job. And it was rough, but I think early on there was this sense of hope that by summer, everything would be okay. And then came the earthquake and the civil unrest and the protests. And then just as we were thinking about opening up, the hurricane winds came, and then the virus spiked again. As opposed to the sudden threats, we now face more chronic, unpredictable stresses and uncertainty. Health scares, family issues. We're missing people that we love and depend on for support. And then I think there's a lot of fear around what's next. It can be overwhelming and exhausting. Our stress responses have been activated over and over again. So how can these repeated stresses impact us? What happens to us? Literally, nearly every part of our life can be impacted by trauma and by stress, from our thinking to work to social functioning. I feel pretty safe saying that many of us are likely experiencing some pretty significant levels of stress. And after 10 months of life in the pandemic, we could easily call it chronic stress. So we're going to watch a short 4-minute video that speaks about the impact of stress on our bodies and our brains. As you watch this video, I'd like to invite you to notice things that you might also be able to relate to. What changes have you noticed in yourself, your loved ones, maybe your clients? Take notes of these things, and we're going to be breaking into small groups after the video to talk about them for a moment. So cross your fingers that my skills will make us so that we can actually see this.
Cramming for a test? Trying to get more done than you have time to do? Stress is a feeling we all experience when we are challenged or overwhelmed. But more than just an emotion, stress is a hardwired physical response that travels throughout your entire body. In the short term, stress can be advantageous, but when activated too often or too long, your primitive fight or flight stress response not only changes your brain, but also damages many of the other organs and cells throughout your body. Your adrenal gland releases the stress hormones cortisol, epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and norepinephrine. As these hormones travel through your bloodstream, they easily reach your blood vessels and heart. Adrenaline causes your heart to beat faster and raises your blood pressure, over time causing hypertension. Cortisol can also cause the endothelium, or inner lining of blood vessels, to not function normally. Scientists now know that this is an early step in triggering the process of atherosclerosis, or cholesterol plaque buildup in your arteries. Together, these changes increase your chances of a heart attack or stroke. When your brain senses stress, it activates your autonomic nervous system. Through this network of nerve connections, your big brain communicates stress to your enteric or intestinal nervous system. Besides causing butterflies in your stomach, this brain-gut connection can disturb the natural rhythmic contractions that move food through your gut, leading to irritable bowel syndrome, and can increase your gut sensitivity to acid, making you more likely to feel heartburn. Via the gut's nervous system, stress can also change the composition and function of your gut bacteria, which may affect your digestive and overall health. Speaking of digestion, does chronic stress affect your waistline? Well, yes. Cortisol can increase your appetite. It tells your body to replenish your energy stores with energy-dense foods and carbs, causing you to crave comfort foods. High levels of cortisol can also cause you to put on those extra calories as visceral or deep belly fat. This type of fat doesn't just make it harder to button your pants. It is an organ that actively releases hormones and immune system chemicals called cytokines that can increase your risk of developing chronic diseases, such as heart disease and insulin resistance. Meanwhile, stress hormones affect immune cells in a variety of ways. Initially, they help prepare to fight invaders and heal after injury, but chronic stress can dampen the function of some immune cells, make you more susceptible to infections, and slow the rate you heal. Want to live a long life? You may have to curb your chronic stress. That's because it has even been associated with shortened telomeres, the shoelace tip ends of chromosomes that measure a cell's age. Telomeres cap chromosomes to allow DNA to get copied every time a cell divides without damaging the cell's genetic code. And they shorten with each cell division. When telomeres become too short, a cell can no longer divide, and it dies. As if all that weren't enough, chronic stress has even more ways it can sabotage your health, including acne, hair loss, sexual dysfunction, headaches, muscle tension, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, and irritability. So, what does all this mean for you? Your life will always be filled with stressful situations, but what matters to your brain and entire body is how you respond to that stress. If you can view those situations as challenges you can control and master, rather than as threats that are insurmountable, you will perform better in the short run and stay healthy in the long run.
Okay. I think it's pretty clear from the slides that some of the impacts are pretty big, while others are more subtle. Maybe you've noticed something in yourself or others that wasn't mentioned. Whatever the case, have your notes handy. And let's see. Oops. I know this happened before, so let me see if I can. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oops. All right. Have your notes handy. We're going to be moving into random groups of about 6 or 7 people. And I'm going to ask you to discuss the following questions, and they'll be in the chat. Rochelle's going to help us out with that. Put them in the chat. So from your initial reflection time, what are some of the things that have been particularly stressful for you during the past year? And as you do the sharing, don't feel like you have to share the most stressful or things that might make you feel uncomfortable. Just choose something you feel safe sharing. That's fine. And then what types of physical or mental challenges have you experienced that might be a result of this chronic stress or the challenges of these times? I can say for sure that one of mine has been just finding that sometimes I am zoning out, having a really hard time focusing. And that's been something that's relatively new for me. And I'm making that connection for myself. And then the third question, if you have time, what changes have you seen in others that might be a result of current life challenges or this chronic stress? I know from past experiences that sometimes things can happen when we get in breakout rooms. All of a sudden there's that awkward silence. Who's going to start? So I'm going to invite you to have actually each person share on whatever aspect of the questions you feel most comfortable. And maybe we can go by alphabetical order, maybe first by first name. Let's do that in the first group, by first name, alphabetical order. And if someone's not feeling up to providing input, no pressure, you can just pass, but we want to give everybody a chance to share in the discussion. You'll have about 15 minutes in these groups or so, so go around and give everyone a chance to share, and then open up for anything the group wants to talk about until you come back, and we'll bring you back into the larger group. So Rochelle, I think we're ready for the groups.
Okay, I'm going to break you out into the groups. I think this would be a good opportunity, if you're available, to turn your cameras on so you can actually start putting faces with names again. So if you're willing to do that, that would be great. And I'll break you into rooms. While you're in your room, you can raise your hand and ask a question, and I can come jump into each room.